I-57 holds at 16 minutes, I-80 to the Ryan. Then on the inbound Ryan, the travel time is 17 minutes from 95th to downtown. Inbound Kennedy, delays start at Nagel. It's a travel time of 28 minutes, so Hare to downtown quicker in the express. Outbound 22 minutes to the airport. Inbound Eisenhower, 36 minutes, 390 to downtown. Outbound it's 30. To Stevenson, 32 minutes. From the Veterans Memorial to Lakeshore Drive, I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our AM 560 Weather Center. Steve Williams.
Periods of sunshine and clouds today, high 42. It'll be partly cloudy tonight, low 34. Partly sunny day tomorrow, the high 40. AccuWeather's Minutecast has expanded to 4 hours. Download the newly redesigned app today. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
38 at O'Hare, 37 along the lakefront. Your next news update is at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning. It's a new day in Chicago. A new bill has been signed, the crime reform bill. And yesterday, a bunch of lawmakers, not a bunch, 14, and Governor Pritzker had the big signing when the pens were there, and he handed out pens to everybody. And basically, Governor Pritzker had a message for those who don't agree with this 750-page document.
Opponents of this law don't want any change, don't believe there is injustice in the system, and are preying upon fear of change to lie and fearmonger in defense of the status quo. But let me say this to the people of this great state. All Illinoisans will live in a safer and more just state with this law on the books.
L.G. Sims was there. He was one of the authors of the bill, and basically, was defending it and saying that we had 9 public hearings, folks. So don't get mad if you weren't a part of it. We gave you 9 opportunities to voice your complaints. And with more on that, let's welcome to our program Jim Kaitschuk. Oh, we should have discussed that before the segment. That voice, by the way, John Anthony, who's filling in for Dan Proft. Jim joins us on our Turnkey.pro answer line. He is the executive director of the Illinois Sheriff's Association. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Oh, I'm okay. How about yourself, Amy?
Good. So I'm sure you read the 750-page bill. And
I did. I've read it multiple times. I'm not sure everybody else has.
I don't think everybody else has, and I don't even know if the governor has because it's a long document. But what is your point of contention about this bill?
Well, I would say one of the things, the point of contention would be exactly the quote that you just played on the governor yesterday. That's pretty disturbing. So apparently we're liars and fearmongers.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting, and we want no change. Right. The ironic thing about this is not one time has the governor reached out to us to have a conversation about this. Apparently our opinion on these issues don't really matter because, as he stated, we're liars and fearmongers.
Wow. But, they said that they reached out to law enforcement, but did they really? I mean, you think that they'd reach out to the executive director of the Sheriff's Association?
Well, one would think so, right? Being as how I represent 102 sheriffs across the state, wow. or certainly maybe my president of the organization, leadership, somebody on our board. That didn't happen. Now, can I tell you exclusively that they didn't reach out to anybody? No, I'm sure that they did. But who that is, I don't know. That was not shared.
Well, Jim, one of them. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Good to hear from you again. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. I do know that one of the people they reached out to was the chief of police of Hazelcrest. He's somebody that they had on. I know Sean Smoot, who was vehemently opposed to the bill. I read it twice now myself. What, in your estimation, is probably the worst part? Because you guys came out with a meme about it, about the trespassing, and you had 3 other aspects to it. What's the most depressing part of this bill for policing going forward?
Well, I would say, certainly the Pretrial Fairness Act is a huge issue, but that's one that's, good, bad, or otherwise. We have a little time to digest and figure out if there are ways to adjust it. You, as a former cop, the use of force, John, how do we ever do what they've indicated in writing in a use of force situation now? I don't know how you affect an arrest.
No.
And they don't either, because I said, what are the rules of engagement yesterday? And they said, well, that's up for debate. I said, so somebody shoots somebody and the cops are chasing them. What is the rule? What are you telling police officers to do? Yeah. And they said, well, this is open for interpretation and we're still working on it. Like, you're still working on it. You just signed the bill into law. But they said they're open for suggestions, Jim.
Well, yeah, but apparently, I didn't hear anybody say that the examples that we provided in that meme that were inaccurate. Did you?
No, not one. Well, I saw some. Well, on the bubble, I saw some people that's in the political bubble basically say, this can't be true." That's the only thing I saw.
Right, but one would have thought that particularly, I am sure I'm going to give them this level of credit. I am sure that it was not their intention to structure the bill in such a way that the active shooter situation that we pointed out would be the case. Yeah. But the reality is, it is.
Right.
And we're the first state in the country to have no cash bond, no cash bail, which they were celebrating that like this is great.
Well, and Senator Sims indicated that, no other places in the country that elimination of cash bond has become an issue where there's been an increase in crime. Well, but you just said that we're the first state to do this entirely.
Right.
So how do you make that comparison, first of all? And I believe you guys will remember, too, last year when New York passed theirs in January, things exploded.
Yeah, crime's up 16.7%.
So
because you're telling the bad guys, go steal. Yesterday I said, well, what can you do to get, the no cash bail? And they're like, retail theft. Oh, okay. I'll just open my store, let them come in, take what they want, and leave.
Yeah.
That's not a system we want to be part of.
No. And you got a property crime or a trespassing situation. So they eliminated the ability for a custodial arrest for a Class B and Class C. The common thing, and John, you can attest to this, how many times have you seen a call come out where it says remove subject?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So you go to a convenience store where somebody is just in there and they won't leave, and you go in there and you say, hey, listen, you got to get out of here. The owner doesn't want you in here anymore. You come back, you're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
That's typically the line, right? Unless they've already been trespassed before.
Right.
So now we go in there and say, hey, you need to get out of here. Here's your citation. You need to go ahead and leave. And they say, no, I'm not going to. Under this, unless they are a threat to themselves or someone else, we can't physically remove them.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much.
What else is in this bill?
So Jeff,
here.
One of the things I want to talk about, because, I'm so glad that qualified immunity wasn't in this bill, because I really don't think people really understand. I don't even think some of the legislators understand qualified immunity. I saw that was taken out, but there's going to be a committee formed or commission formed to study that. But I'm not liking the decertification into licensure for cops. Cops are different from teachers because we have to make. Well, I had to make split-second decisions. Why is it important? What's the problem with? Do you have a problem, first of all, with the licensure changing from decertification to licensure? And do you think it'll be a problem going forth in policing?
Well, I think moving forward, it's still going to be decertification moving forward. So they didn't transition because you're right. One of the things that we fought against was a licensing component because we didn't want to have an annual renewal for a variety of reasons. One of which is obviously based on Governor's comments, last year about the enforcement of executive orders. What if he had a license controlled by the state?
Right.
That was just a license that you had to renew, and he decided that, these folks are not implementing the executive order as I see fit, so I'm going to go ahead and suspend their license.
Great. That's unintended consequence.
I know. Well, do you think Governor Pritzker did this just to secure the black vote?
Yes.
Because the primaries are, a year and a month away, March 22nd. John, do you want to answer that question?
I do. Well, Jim's not afraid to answer that question either.
Yeah. But you do.
I'm not afraid of much, am I, John?
No, you're not.
Well, Jim, what do you think?
Do I think there is political motivation of this? Sure, I do. one of the biggest things that I didn't hear yesterday is even the governor has to know that this bill is problematic, right? So he could have gone out there and said yesterday, hey, I'm going to sign this piece of legislation today, but I understand that there are things in here that need to be fixed and move forward. The only person that made any remote comments like that was Kwame Raoul.
Yeah, because when I asked him to, you can, if you're a criminal, you can get your record expunged. Yeah. But if you're a police officer, you make a mistake and you get charged with something, that sticks with you for life.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like a just system.
Yeah.
And that's when he's replied that, it's a work in progress. And the no cash bail doesn't take effect until 2025. People should know that too. But still.
Well, and it's just so you know too. Why is it that cash bail doesn't take effect until right after the first of the year in 2023?
Oh, the election is over.
What happens in November?
The election is over.
There you go.
See, it's all political.
I also saw in there that the AG now has new powers. I want to know. I don't know if he's the first in the nation to get this power, because now he can oversee misconduct in policing, where normally the DOJ has that power, but we've given that power to Kwame Raoul, correct, in this bill?
We've given some as it relates to, he's got appointments for the review panel. And part of that, quite honestly, John, was specifically directed at the governor, because, as you well know, when they set up task force or boards, consistently the governor has, most of the time has authority to appoint certain people to the board. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those appointments may be based on the organizations that they work for. So let's say the Illinois sheriffs or associations or organizations that represent sheriffs in the state. Well, the last couple times that he's had appointments to the Law Enforcement and Training Standards Board, my office was never contacted about appointments to that board. They appointed whoever they wanted to. And that's not to disparage the members that they appointed, but they took it out of our hands. Yeah. So, I have much more trust and faith in the AG to work with us on making appointments than I do with the governor.
Yeah. And Kwame's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kwame and LG. I got to admit, when we worked on that Senate Bill 1304,
LG Sims,
the bill you like.
Yeah, it's my favorite bill.
Favorite bill. I mean, we
so
literally.
Sexy.
But there were more cops down there too,
right,
pushing back against it. I think there's only now 2 cops in the General Assembly, or former cops in the General Assembly today, when we had 5 or 6
back
in Senate Bill 1304.
So let me ask you one thing about police investigating a homicide. Normally, when you go to a homicide, the yellow tape is up. You respect the yellow tape. You don't, get in and taint the scene. Now you can go underneath the yellow tape and walk in freely?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can't stop people from going underneath a yellow or a red crime scene tape.
That's going to be, again, that gets into, you have to have an underlying custodial arrest. Unless they are a threat to a person or themselves, it's a Class B and Class C. And that's the problem.
That's
and again, safety. I don't know, Amy, that it was their intent to do these kind of things, but the reality is the way the language reads, and others talk about what it wasn't our intent. Okay, well, intent can be one thing, but there was very limited debate and discussion on these bills as they were passing in the middle of the early morning and late morning. So you can't make a legislative intent interpretation at this point in time based on what the General Assembly wanted. You've got to go with what the language actually states.
And I hated that it went through lame duck session. And the people that actually presented these ideas, they knew what they were doing. They understand these groups, these activist groups, they know what they're doing. The ACLUs and those type of groups of the world, they know exactly what they're doing. You and I both know that.
Yep. I don't doubt it a bit.
All right, Jim, so how are you going to fight back? What's the next step?
We continue to evaluate the legislation, and unfortunately, each time I reread it and go through new sections, you find more potential pitfalls. We're evaluating, its consistency or lack thereof with existing case law. Our legal advisors are reviewing it as well. Next steps are, let's see where we go into the legislative session. The good news is, to some extent, they've got opportunities to make modifications, hopefully significant modifications this spring. But going back to what John was talking about in terms of qualified immunity, that is a game changer, an absolute game changer for cops.
Yeah. And,
they think that we're just, the sky is falling and, oh, my God, we won't have – they're just saying the typical things for police, right, that we are overstating what the facts are. The reality is that I can tell you from my personal self here, as a police officer that still works, I'm done. If you get rid of qualified immunity, why in the world would I continue to do this?
I agree.
Yep.
And Jim, what about they changed also how we look at obstruction, right? And resisting arrest. If there's no underlying crime, you can arrest that person. I mean, think about people who don't want to give you the driver's license. Will that affect that if someone doesn't want to give you the driver's license at a traffic stop?
I need to look at that one a little closer, John, but you're right. I mean, they treated obstruction and resisting the same, unfortunately, because they are the same area of the act. Mm-hmm. But yes, I mean, it creates additional problems. If somebody wants to, we can't charge them just for resisting. If somebody runs away from us, normally you'd be able to chase them down and say that was resisting, right? Yeah. And under this scenario, you wouldn't be able to do that.
All right, Jim, how do you pronounce his last name?
Kaitschuk.
Jim Kaitschuk, Executive Director, Illinois Sheriff's Association. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. We appreciate it.
No problem, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, buddy.
And good luck. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you aware that AmericanEagle.com has been designing websites since the internet started? Do you know they've helped companies large and small achieve results that they themselves thought impossible? Today, a well-designed website is an art form. There are no cookie-cutter solutions. At AmericanEagle.com, they are proud to design and develop a website that fits their client's business. Their experience shows that a well-designed website with the client's business at the forefront will bring an excellent return on their investment. Clients, from startups to medium and large businesses, have come to rely